Hello, good evening, namaste. I, Dr. Radhika Madan, welcome all of you to a wonderful and exciting session brought to you by Women with Wings. I thank all those of you who were able to join us today, and for all those of you who could not join us, make sure to watch all our episodes on our social media platforms. Women with Wings, such a beautiful platform which brings together like minded women who collaborate with each other, nurture each other, bring together wonderful thoughts just to bring a powerful and positive change in the community. The most beautiful thing about Women with Wings is that for them, every woman counts, and that is wonderful. Each and every woman is so important. Today, we have all come together on the eve of the 75th Independence Day of our country. Independence Day. Whenever we talk about 15th of August, it brings about a deep sense of emotion and patriotism in each one of us. When I think of 15th of August, I feel proud. When I see the tricolor, it makes my heart jump with joy. There is so much happiness whenever we are looking at the tricolor, and we always want it to be flying high. Independence Day could not have been possible without the efforts and the sacrifices made by our freedom fighters. And even back then, women have always emerged as strong people, even on the battlefield. On the Independence Day, on the eve of the Independence Day, I cannot miss out to name a few women like Rani Lakshmibai, Sarojini Naidu, who helped us achieve where we are today. Women have always shown resilience, courage, determination, strength, not just on the battlefield, but also in their personal and professional lives. Hats off to all the women. To celebrate this and also to celebrate our country's achievements, I would like to invite Ms. Vishali Vig, the founder of Livalia.
Hello.
Today, hi Vishali.
Hi, Radhika. How are you? I
Good.
am. Thank you so much for having me here.
Pleasure. So today, Vaishali and me, we are going to take you all on a journey of East meets West. So are we ready to board the flight? Let's fasten our seatbelts and take off on a journey from India to New York. Vishali has been instrumental in keeping the art, culture, and heritage of India alive, even in the United States of America, through her line of clothing. She makes the Indian pashmina, the Banarsi dupattas, the Parsi embroidery, the Phulkari, reach America and creates magic out of fabric. Vaishali, with extreme happiness and enthusiasm, I welcome you. I'm sure all our viewers are very excited to know more about you before we start off with our conversation. So why don't you tell us something about yourself?
Thank you so much, Radhika. Firstly, thank you for having me over and be a part of this wonderful platform, Women with Wings. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. My company's name is Livalia. Livalia is a name that we coined. Live is lifestyle, word part of lifestyle, and Alia as in Vidyalaya, the Alia. So a house of lifestyle. So it's and it is all about uh, working with artisans across the world. I've started off with India, getting their beautiful weaves, embroideries, prints. Our nation is rich with such traditional, beautiful, and amazing artistries in fabrics, just fabrics I'm talking about, and there's so much more. So I am concentrating on fabrics, how these are woven, how these are, what's the history behind them, and I try to bring them into the limelight, and showcase them in the US right now, because I'm right here. And my aim is to go past the boundary of having the thought that it's ethnic wear and I can't wear it to work and I can't wear. So we need to surpass that and incorporate these clothings. I'm wearing a Kani weave jacket cape jacket, and this beautiful texture, beautiful weave can be worn in a daily life, right? Anywhere in the world. So that's the aim, to bring our traditions, introduce them to the world, and have people embrace them. So that's what Livalia is about.
You look lovely in what you're wearing, Vaishali.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sure each one of us who's watching you wants to have one of those pieces that you're wearing.
I'm glad. I am so glad. I hope so.
Absolutely. So, Vaishali, taking it on from here. So, since we are in conversation on the eve of the 75th Independence Day of our country, it is not just a matter of pride when we talk about Independence Day, it also brings about new resolutions and new goals. So, if I may ask, what does independence mean to you? And this question is to all our viewers also. They're most welcome to write their comments in the chat box. Let's see what Independence Day means, or independence for that matter, means to each one of us.
Wow. First of all, happy Independence Day to all of us. For me, independence means being self-reliant, being able to do what one wants without having to conform to ways that you don't desire to, right? Doing it yourself and being able to do yourself and having the ability to support yourself. That for me is independent. And also being able to live a life where one is not held down by the shackles, invisible shackles of emotional traumas or stresses and social dogmas. So yeah, being independent is free of all that.
Awesome. So to sum it up, I think self-reliance is what you're talking about, that we need to be self-reliant and independent. That's how women should be. So I think that's a wonderful message that you are conveying to all the women who are listening to you out there. Great. So Vaishali, most of us often believe in the fact that our degree, the education that we get, always determines our career. So when we talk about that, it's actually this dysfunctional belief, I would say. It's not always that your degree matches your career. And on the contrary, when I was reading about this, I realized that 3/4 of the college grads really don't turn up into a career where they actually did their degree in. And you've proved that right yourself. You were a student of science during graduation. You went on to do Indian history, and from there into the clothing industry. So, you've seen all three spheres of life. So how was this transition, and what actually triggered you to get into this line of your career?
It is true. I didn't pursue a career in any of the higher studies that I did. I wanted to be a doctor at some point, right? Growing up, it was very passionate for me. But as I progressed into preparing for MBBS, and then I realized I want to do more, and I want to be an Indian administrative service, join the Indian administrative services. And then so I changed the study path, and I started studying history, Indian history, knowing more about it. And I was just loving it. History wasn't a subject that I enjoyed in a secondary school, but as I went into doing my master's, it was something that I really, really loved. Then I started working as sub-editor in a newspaper in Jammu, and then things happened, got married, moved to the US, couldn't work here because of the visa until we got that got sorted out slowly. Then I started working I had an opportunity to work with someone who was doing embellishments, embroideries for designers in the US. Now, in the meantime, while I was doing my higher studies, my mom had started a ready-made garment unit for men's clothing. And there I would work and watch the pattern makers, how they were cut, how, the initial part of making an outfit. Fascinating. It was fascinating how you start with a piece of paper and then transform it to a clothing. And I would get some of my outfits made. And that taught me a lot. And when I came here, and this happened that I met with this lady who had this embroidery house, just dove right in. It was easy. I understood everything, and I this thing. But and that's how my journey in the fashion industry here started. But I tell you, nothing goes waste. My science education, my education in history, nothing went waste. And um, with science, I learned the rigor. I learned to understand concepts, visual spacing, all that. My science brain was helping me out with the layouts. And then history, I still am a student of history, because when I study any regional art, whether it is north, south, east, west, wherever, different regions. I've studied Kashmir, and I've studied Pulkari and Parsi Gara. I go into the history of these embroideries and weaving techniques, and that teaches me how they came. It's all the study of history came back, right? And I feel one must just follow the heart, and that's what I did. It took me this journey from wanting to be a doctor to being actually a designer. It was just a journey because I followed my heart, and I think that's what everybody should do. That's when one is happy.
Amazing, amazing. So, I mean, good you didn't turn into a doctor. Otherwise, how would we have seen all the wonderful collections that you've made? So lovely. But Vaishali, I'm quite intrigued to know what was the first thing that you actually made and for whom?
First thing I made. Oh, now do you want as a designer or back in the days when I was younger, before I
Okay,
became a designer?
both.
Both. So I worked with a pattern maker to make my own outfits, right? And then for the first thing I was designed was a bedspread, a duvet cover for home. So as I told you, it was a ready-made garment unit for men's clothing, and there were scraps everywhere. I collected those scraps, the bigger pieces, and put them to in a jigsaw puzzle together to make a gorgeous bed cover. Actually, it was duvet cover, which my mom still uses. So that's the first thing I made. Yeah, she's been using it in the home.
I'm sure you have a lot of memories with that and a lot of emotions attached with that.
Yes, of
Absolutely.
course.
Great. So tell me, of course, when we interacted, you told me that, you're coming from an army background, you stayed in Jammu for some time, and that's where the interest of Pashmina and the Kashmir wool came in. But how did you get an interest in Pulkari and Banarsi and Parsi work?
So yeah, because of the access and because I had seen this so up close, we travel extensively within India. So I had seen creating of the pashminas, because my parents were also very interested in all this. So they would go to the interiors, go to the people who are making it by hand and see that, right? And I've also been to factories where mulberry silk worms are being cultured to make silk. And then there is another weaving of kantha embroidery is being done in Calcutta and other areas. So I've seen how the artisans work. And so when I started getting into this, I started with pashmina. I started with the weaves. I actually was trying to get a throw made, which had a good mix of pashmina and wool to get the right pricing, right weight. So a lot of study was going into that, and experimentations. And that slowly led me into like, it was so intriguing how fiber takes a form of this beautiful garment that we adorn, and like we just love to hold on to us. It's so soft, so lovely. That once I covered a lot of Kashmir and a lot of embroidery, Sozni embroidery, scroll work, and this plethora of art over there. I started graduating towards chicken work from Lucknow. Then I was like, okay, what's more? And then the pulkaris came my way, and then the kantha, and then I came across the Parsi Gara embroideries, and I was like stunned by the beauty of that work and the history behind it. So it's intriguing to me how these arts have traveled across the boundaries come and settle in India ages ago and have been a part of India, and how they have grown. But grown, and to some extent, unfortunately, even the Pani weave, which is such a beautiful and has been worn by the Mughal emperors and the royalties in India, that arts was dying out for the reason that the artisans were not getting paid. It is a art. It is a time consuming art. It's a time consuming weave, and the artisans were stopping that. The generation, how it works, that the fathers do the work and they pass the talent down to the sons to pursue that. But now the younger generation was looking for other avenues for income, so that because this was not paying them enough. And so slowly, like Kaniyama is a little village in Kashmir where the Kani embroidery is done. That's where the name came from. They were artisans that stopped working, and the government slowly, put their funds into it, revived the industry. And that's also the reason why I was like, such beautiful art, cannot let it die. Let's go back, help whatever we can in a small, humble way. So that, and then beautiful work, I just get attracted to it. That's how I try to reach out to every part.
So I wasn't wrong when I said that you create magic out of fabric and you're keeping this heritage and culture alive. Like you said that this is a dying thing and people are not really looking up to it because it's not paying them well. But here we have somebody who's really encouraging people and is ensuring that the art is still alive, which is wonderful. This is a great thing that you're doing for our country, and of course what you're doing for the community is wonderful. So, Vishnu, just to ask you that you mentioned about so many embroideries and so much of work, the Kantha and Lucknowi styles and all the other forms of fabric that you work with. So, which one really works very well and people of the United States resonate very well with? I mean, what is the kind of fabric that they look at, and what kind of buying behavior do you see amongst those people?
Pashminas are very popular, I guess, because certain cooler regions, and they've heard a lot about it, and Pashminas do very well. I have seen embroideries with a lot of texture and color. People are gravitating towards that too. My jackets, the Khani jackets and the Jamawar jackets, they have been a hit. Like, I've spent 5 years with just the Khani, and while I was researching into other things, and Khani and Jamawar jackets have been a hit. Even for men, I started 2 or 3 years ago. I started the men's line where the Sozni embroidery is being done on wool jackets. That's done very well too. Now I have seen this tremendous response in the beauty of Pulkari work, the stoles, and people find it easy to wrap it around themselves because of the color, the vibrance. Now, people, when I first came to the US, all I could see in New York was black, gray, beige, black, white. This was a color palette, and we've evolved. We've really learned to embrace more, and so now the colors are more appealing and are accepted by a lot of people. So fashion trends have changed, and so these people are now appreciating the hand woven, hand embroidered fabrics a lot more.
So you brought color into the lives of many people, huh?
I can't take the full credit, but yes, we've been working towards it.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So, Vaishali, there are a lot of choices that one gets in their life. Like, you also had multiple choices. You either could have become a doctor or an IAS officer or a sub-editor to newspaper, which you any which ways worked for. Sometimes we grab those opportunities, sometimes we miss those opportunities, and sometimes the smallest of decisions that we make bring about the biggest change in our life. So what are these choices that came your way other than the ones that you've already spoken about, and how did that change your life journey?
Interesting, good question. Um, Yeah, choices. I listened to my heart. Think sometimes the opportunities came my way, and I was like, is this something, especially when I was introduced to this lady who's doing embroideries, for the designers in the US. I was like, is it something that really has a market? Is it something that people wear? Embellishment? I don't see anyone on the streets of New York wearing any embroideries. And then I learned that there's a whole different set of people who love embellishments and their dresses. So that was one choice that I said, okay, let me give it a try. Let me go with what's in front of me and take on to that. Then while I was working, I worked there for about almost a decade. And then I realized, one evening my daughter was like, Mama, I don't see you enough. And that really, really shook me up. And I was like, that is true. Because in the morning, I was like, hurry up, let's go to school. And in the evening, when I could come later in the evening, I was like, hurry up, let's go to bed. It's bedtime, go to sleep, etc., etc. And it was all rushing this way and that way. So I realized I need to take it slow. I need to spend more time with my child. And so I decided to, quit that job and start something of my own eventually. And now it was like, okay, I need to slow down the pace because here in Manhattan, everything is on a run all the time. And that's when I made a change, and that's an opportunity that I grabbed, and I'm so grateful to that opportunity, that moment that I made that decision, that I could spend more time with my children. At that time, I had just one daughter, and then it just more time to the family, which is so important. And slowly, when I got settled with that, I started working on my new, you know, uh, venture, and Livalia came along slowly and gradually. So yes, that was a moment that I'm so glad, that opportunity to spend time with my family, and the opportunity that came, like, okay, now I need to start working and do it at my own pace. So hence Livalia was the other opportunity that I grabbed.
Wow. So, one thing that very evidently comes out is that one should listen to their heart. And that is very important because your heart always guides you the correct way. And another thing, very interestingly, what you said was that it's okay to slow down. It's, you don't always have to be in a rush. You don't have to be running behind things all the time. It's all right to slow down and take it easy and take a deep breath and let things happen on their own, which is wonderful. That we all are living in a stage in life, I would say, where we're just rushing. We've forgotten to enjoy the small little pleasures of life. So I think what your daughter said to you was something that was the changing point in your life. And had that not happened, Livalia wouldn't have been there.
I know.
So, yeah.
You're right.
This is great, great. So Vishali, I mean, we all know that in the last 1.5 years, what the world has seen. I mean, we all have seen the pandemic, which is something that we never ever thought of, we never imagined in our lives. It was something which just hit us, and we were like, okay, we are in the four walls now, and we really don't know what to do. And I'm sure that, all businesses and every industry was severely impacted, specifically the fashion industry, because nobody had a need to go out. Nobody was allowed to go out. We were all sitting at home, working from home in our most comfortable clothes, in our pajamas and t-shirts, and that's the way the world was. So how was it for you? Because it must have been a big hit to your business, to your entire setup. So how did you cope up with that?
Well, like a lot of other people, my business came to a screeching halt. Screeching halt. It was like, okay, one moment you're planning things, and the other moment there's nothing. And I think that was, again, like you mentioned earlier, grabbing an opportunity to slow down and pay attention to the family. I am I'm lucky that I had ways to fend for myself. My husband's there. Like, we didn't have many other businesses went out. Basically, a lot of people went out of business. So I didn't happen for me, and I'm grateful to God for that. But business did come to a screeching halt, and that I took that opportunity to spend more time again at home and rethink everything. But my business was how, because it is a small brand and not many people know about it, and it is an upcoming brand where I had to take it to the people to show them what I have, introduce them, and educate them about my product. So we do a lot of trunk shows and exposes, and that's where they would learn about my product. All that came to a stop. And now, so it was just about, I did have a website, but people were not purchasing. Come September, when things started opening up, and I wanted to now, okay, let's step out. People want a change, they want to see more stuff, and they were asking for it. That's when we started reaching out, and I did something that I was very skeptical about initially because I wasn't confident about it. I started doing Facebook Lives. And because of actually some push from my friends, I would admit, I wouldn't have done it otherwise. I did Facebook Lives, and to my surprise, it was taken very well, and people received it and responded, and they were now willing to buy again. And so that was what changed my thing later. But till then, it was no business for 7 months, no business. Like, it was just bad. But slowly after the lives, people started wanting to send things over. I would ship it to them, and slowly I also started working on populating my website with more products. Like, my jackets are limited edition jackets because they are, I get fabric from the artisans, and that's the limited amount of fabric, and I just make whatever, and then it sells, and then I get some more, and so that's how I used to function. But now, and I couldn't put it on the website because they were limited edition. You always have to have a manpower to keep maintaining that, and I didn't have anyone for that. Slowly, I have a team now that maintains my website, and so it's grown slowly. But what I took from the pandemic was that, again, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to find the right time to come back up again and rethink, everything. And what it brought to me, pandemic was, I shouldn't be saying this, but it was beneficial in a couple of ways. It turned out to be something good for me, is that I could spend a lot of time with family, and as many of us must have done that. Uh, Reality check, you get a reality check that, okay, what's more important in life. And then slowly, I tapped into the potential to perform on the Facebook Lives. I was so nervous. So those are the two things that, pandemic helped me out with.
And the pandemic even taught you not to be camera conscious because you were going Facebook Live. So I'm sure that now you know how to be in front of the camera. Lovely. And you went digital. So I'm sure that's something new that you learned as well. But what about the buying behavior of consumers? Like you said that you started putting a collection on your website. So I'm sure people were buying online since, the one-to-one interaction was not there. So how do you think that, did the trend in their buying change pre-pandemic and, during the pandemic, or was it just the same?
Pre-pandemic, I wasn't selling online as much. I never pushed too much. It was just something that it was there, and the website was for the validation of my things. There was scarves and stuff. So they would buy scarves, but not the jackets and other products. They were not on. But the trend changed. Earlier, as I said, it was all one-on-one. My main sales would happen in person. When they saw my products, they put it on, and initially they would come to my booth and say, like, is this for men, is this for women, when the jacket is just hanging on a hanger. I was like, then I would educate them about the product, about the fabrics and everything. And the moment they would put it on, because I invested a lot of time in the fit and making sure we get the right fabrics, so that's when they loved it and they purchased it and they came back again. So now people were very skeptical online initially, whether do I want to try it. But because they were so bored sitting at home and they wanted to try something new, they plunged into it. And I gave them the flexibility. Okay, if it doesn't work for you, send it back. And that helped. And so people were a little nervous about that initially. But I feel people wanted to experiment. People wanted to go out, and then they also wanted to help others. Okay, they know businesses have been closed, so out of compassion for others, empathy for others, they started working towards helping out others by buying their products. So I think that's something I've seen women do a lot.
Lovely, lovely. So, we've been talking about your collection, and of course, like I said, that your collection is all about the art and culture of India. So, when you are sitting in New York and you're designing and curating your collection, where is this inspiration coming from? Because I'm sure that you would be making your trips only annually. So, sitting there, what is your source of inspiration?
The artisans, their work.
Yeah.
I do a lot of research on their work, and I pick every region. There's so much there that I haven't covered or touched even. Weaves from different parts of the country, like the silks from Assam. There's cottons from Maharashtra, Kasuti from Bangalore. There's so much that still. So when I do this research and I see like the beauty, the ikat, I still have to have. I'm planning a whole collection on ikat. So that's the inspiration, the artisans and the work from there. That's where I get inspired.
Amazing. So that means you're working so closely with the artisans of India. So we can definitely say that you are empowering them. So why don't you share some stories with us that how you got involved with them, how do you find them, how do you do research on them, and most importantly, what about women empowerment? Because I'm sure that you must be dealing with so many women as well. So is there any story which touched you deeply, which you want to share with us on women empowerment?
Yes. As I mentioned, as traveling through the country, we find different regions where the work is being done. And I now tap back into the memories on how I saw how the weaving is done and how the products are being made. And that impact that I have carries through the years. And I reach out now to different areas. I source from the artisans directly as much as possible, so eliminating the middlemen. And while doing all this research and travel, and I also came along with areas where women are working to earn a living, the rural women. There are so many pockets of India where women are doing the pulkari work is all done by women, right? And otherwise a lot of zardozi and ari work is being done by men, but now pulkari is being done by kantha is being done by women. So I have a lot of kantha stalls. And we also came along in Uttarakhand and Chamoli area. They're doing crochet, and even in rural areas of Orissa, women are doing crochet. And that actually, crochet is not a very ideal product for the New York market, honestly speaking. But I launched my crochet line when I saw their work, and I was like, okay, we are going to do some ponchos and some shrugs. And so we have these beautiful, I have throws, I have ponchos and shrugs, all in crochet, all handmade by these women. And there's also an organization in Purnata in Mumbai that rescues women from human trafficking. I must mention them. And they have women who've been given vocational training. Firstly, of course, mental health, physical health, and then they give vocational training. And these women are taught to take on either basket making, candle making, embroideries, or sewing. So some of my products have been made by these women, simplest sewing techniques have been used. And so we're trying, it is a small step, one step at a time, reaching out to these people and trying to get them. So it's very interesting how when you see them and then you give them an order, it's like, okay, they're so enthusiastic about it, to make the product for you and see how it's been appreciated. Yeah, it's really heartwarming.
And specifically when you're helping people who are actually in need, I think that's a wonderful deed that you're doing. So I think we can call it social entrepreneurship that you're doing, which is wonderful. In fact, I also remember I had also met a couple of women long back within Haryana, and they were making dolls and they were
Yes.
exporting these dolls to Australia. So there was a buyer from Australia who would come and buy their dolls, and they were so happy. You know, that happiness on their face was like, you know, we are doing something of our own and we are entrepreneurs. So it's
Sense of
lovely to see
achievement.
the smile.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's like rural entrepreneurs exist and sometimes we don't even know them. So that's
True.
a lovely thing that you're doing. So we have a question from our audience, and that is that, you know, what is the response of the Indian dresses in New York? What is the response that, you know, you face there?
So, to actually, a lot of people, there are a lot of Indian community over here, New York and beyond, and people do love to own Indian outfits. They do wear it during Diwali and Eid and other festivals, and there's also like Indo-Western outfits that people are loving. My products, as such, are basically cannot, because of the Indian origin, you can say they are Indian because of the fabrics and the weaves, but they needn't be Indian, right? They are not entirely, the silhouettes are not Indian. Let me put it that way. They are jackets that can be worn with torn jeans, with skirts and dresses, however you want. There was a plethora. That's also part of my work, is to educate people in how you can style them. You can wear it with lehenga, sari, shorts. So there's a different ways you can style them, and the response has been great, whether they are Indians or non-Indians. When they see them, they are loving them. Now, many a times, even my models on the ramp, when they try them on during the this thing, they were like, ma'am, we're going to get one of these, we are going to get one of these. I was like, can you give me a better price? Of course, so they all love it, and they love to embrace it because it has such a characteristic to it.
So you're doing fusion work. You're
Yes,
not
it
doing
is.
prime
We,
Indian, you're
we
doing
could say
fusion.
it is fusion. Yeah.
Yes, lovely, great, great. So, you know, I was just going through your website, Vaishali, and there was a lot that you have spoken about sustainability and fashion industry, and the fact that we need to go sustainable is very, very evident. And every industry these days is moving into sustainability. And Livalia speaks a lot about it. So how is fashion industry, you know, moving towards sustainability, and what role is Livalia playing in that?
So yes, sustainability, the environmental consciousness has become a big thing now, and it's catching. And I really hope that it's just not a jargon that people use to become, in trend for their brands. But for me, sustainability is important because it is a longer life, like to our clothing. We try to give our clothing second, third life. And how does that happen? We are using fibers that are natural fibers, wool, silks, cottons. These are easily degradable, and they don't cause a carbon footprint or harm to the environment. But we are also creating products or styles that can be carried down generations, right? You don't just wear and throw. There's not, it's slow fashion, it's not fast fashion. And these are priceless pieces, actually, which can be heirlooms, and then they can be handed down to their next generation. So that way, reducing the carbon footprint, reducing the wastage, and adding to the landfills. So we're trying not, trying to save that. And our pieces are something that we when you go to these villages, these women are working with hand. The artisans are weaving on their khaddis, like the looms. They're not creating any pollution. It's very environmentally conscious. So using those fabrics as is helps towards sustainability. And also, uh, something I thought that came my mind, it just slipped. So basically, we are, our fabrics are also not treated with any chemicals. We are like, if I have bandhani wraps, which are all made, and I make sure wherever I source them from, they are used using eco-friendly dyes, right? It's a beautiful art. The bandhani is gorgeous art, and the colors and the vibrance. But we have to make sure that they're being made with eco-friendly arts, dyes, and no treatment, like no waterproofing, stain resistant treatment. All that treatment we don't do on our fabrics. That's what also causes harm to people who are making the fabrics and to the environment. So we restrain from all that.
Awesome. So that means that you're doing your bit to preserve our environment, which is lovely. So I would say that hats off to you for doing so much. First and foremost, for keeping our culture alive. Secondly, giving empowerment to women, to artisans of India, giving them some kind of a livelihood, that your bit of share that you're doing. And of course, sustainability, that you're doing your bit to preserve our environment, which is amazing. So it's wonderful knowing so much about you, Vaishali. Great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
So, coming back to designing, what is your favorite part of being a designer? Of course, you chose this because your heart wanted to do this. So, what is your favorite part of being a designer, and where do we see Vaishali down the line? What are your future plans in terms of Livalia?
So, when an idea that comes, you conceptualize an idea, put it in a form of a garment, and it is appreciated by somebody else. That's something very fulfilling. That's my favorite part, one of my favorite parts. The other favorite part is to learn so much, go into details of the history. That has been very intriguing for me, right? How Pulkari, do you know, was not originated in India. It came from Iran. Yeah.
Wow.
And then settle, and how, what was inspiration behind Parsi embroideries, Parsi Gara embroidery, the Chinese artifacts that the merchants used to bring in. So it's very intriguing to see the history of these techniques and arts. So that these two are the favorite parts, actually, I would say. And where do I envision what's my, actually, Livalia, my whole idea was starting with India, the arts of India, but covering the whole world. My dream is to make Livalia global. It is not the artistries just from India. India has been easy and accessible, and there's so much that I don't know when I'll get done with covering India. But I want to reach out to the artistries and artisans of the world and bring them, make it whole global. It's a global market. It is not restricted to a certain area, a certain region of the world. It's for everyone to embrace and love. That's my aim.
Amazing. That's lovely. I'm sure that with the kind of vision that you have and with the kind of determination that we all see in you, you are surely going to achieve that. So that's going to be wonderful. So on a lighter note, Vaishali, just want to ask you, is it easier to dress up men or is it easier to dress up women?
Actually, that threw me off. Actually, men are easy to please. Men are easier to please. And I tell you, when women are going through my racks and husbands are standing there getting bored, and I realize that's when I realize the men need I need to bring a clothing line for men. And so now I have the men getting, and they're quick shoppers, and it is easy to dress them up. It's just less work. Women have a little more work to do.
Let me just bring in something on a lighter note and ask you this question. All right. So, Vaishali, I'm sure that there are many people who are listening to you right now, and many people who would be listening to you later on once they see this YouTube video of ours. So many of them would be homemakers, so many of them would be fresh graduates, so many of them would be students and who have an inclination towards being a designer, but may not have the opportunity. So what is it that, any message that you want to convey to these people, that what skills are required, how to start, where to start from, considering your journey, because definitely you did not have any education, a formal education in the line of fashion.
Yeah.
So what is it that, what kind of a message would you want to share with them?
See, if this is something you really want to do, then get into it, right? Obviously, you must have the passion to do it. And I would say if you really want to do this, somebody really wants to do this, one must start from the grassroots level. Like take a job in a company that does similar work, right? Learn from ground level up. The difficulties that an entrepreneur would face, problems that they would have, and the challenges they would have, and how they would overcome those challenges. So these are, learn the ropes, because unless you have an experience with that, one would not learn. And that's how I learned, because I was working from ground level up. I learned everything on job. I had the inclination for fashion and style and fabrics, and mm, thanks to my parents, I've seen a lot of work being done by the artisans that absolutely authentic manners. But when I learned on job, that gave me the confidence to move forward. So it is very important to understand at the ground level up and learn from there. Next, when you start thinking about starting your own business, make sure you know your market, who you're providing to, what they want. You can't provide a product that they are not looking for. And once you study your market, take it slow. There is no rat race. You don't have to prove anything to anybody but to yourself. So slowly, small steps, build it up. And unless you have a strong base, you will not be able to create the tower that you want. And once you have taken off, I'm sure, like any business or any industry, people will face challenges. Do not give up at the first sight of a challenge or a problem that comes your way. Fight it. Find a way to solve the problem. Be resilient. Do not give up. That is something I would say very strongly. Do not give up. Find a way out. So yeah, that's my message, I guess. Start from the grassroots level, take it slow, understand your market, and be resilient.
That's wonderful. I think not just for the fashion industry, but I think for any person who wishes to do anything in life, whether it is entrepreneurship, whether it is starting anything of their own, or whether even being a professional for that matter. Very, very important to start from the scratch and learn the tricks of the trade and take baby steps, like you said, that take small steps and go slow. There is no rush. We're not here to prove anything to anybody. It's just that how you are growing from one day to the other. You have to see your journey rather than comparing your journey with anybody else's journey.
Very, very right.
No competition, but the competition should be from within, with your own self, and rather than having it with anyone else. And very rightly said that you need to know your market. Till the time you don't know your market, what are you going to offer them? And the never give up approach, attitude, I think that is a wonderful message that you've given to everybody. And people who give up, sometimes they are like, how do we start all over again? It becomes very difficult for them to start because the motivation is not there. So one needs to always be self-motivated. Rather than finding motivation from around, you need to find it from within. And
Sure.
buckle up and get back on your toes. That's
Yes.
very
Have confidence in yourself. The thing is, the moment we start doubting our abilities, we step on a rocky path where, so that's when we shake, our confidence shakes and we don't trust ourselves. Have confidence, and if the moment one finds that we do not have the ability to do it, gain the ability, learn more about it. Do you think I knew business? I do you think I knew like anything about fashion industry? I understand fashion. I like fashion, but it's not that I understand the fashion from industry from inside out. But we learned, and just step one step. And I bootstrapped throughout the way, all along, because I couldn't take the pressure of loans and stuff, right? So I just take small steps and ground level up. That is the way to go, because any knowledge that comes from the basics, right? Go back to basics. That knowledge is that is priceless, actually. So nothing can compare.
So I think learning should not stop,
Never stop.
irrespective of who you are in, what level of success that you achieved. You need to always learn.
Absolutely.
It's always the same thing, learn, unlearn, then relearn. So it's not just learning, you have to unlearn and relearn as well. Wonderful. You inspired so many people. We've been getting comments in the chat box below where people are saying that, the story, the journey that you've just shared is so inspiring and so motivating. So this is certainly very, very inspirational what you've shared with us, Vaishali. So on that note, can I ask you a couple of rapid fire questions before we, wrap up?
Okay. All right.
So are we ready for some action?
I'm not sure, but yeah, if you insist.
Great. Let's see how rapidly you answer them. Great. So my first question. In one word, describe Vaishali.
Resilient.
Wow, resilient. Great. Your favorite hobby?
I like sketching. I like sketching.
Other than designing and sketching.
Okay. Favorite hobby? Sketching was my. It was something I've always learned. I've always loved to do, but I do enjoy cooking to some extent, but only when it is for pleasure, not have to do it for work, on a regular basis.
Since you said cooking, what is the best dish that you make?
Aloo paranthas.
Awesome. So the Indian culture has reached your cooking also.
My kids love him. Everybody at home enjoys it. Yeah, cooking. We cook Indian food all the time.
Awesome. Okay, your favorite travel destination?
Switzerland.
Amazing. All right. What is that one thing that you want to put on your bucket list?
I want to do skydiving.
Where? Which part of the world?
Anywhere. I just want to do skydiving. I do definitely want to travel to Scotland and all, this lovely areas over there. But skydiving anywhere.
Awesome. Okay. So if a movie was to made on your life, what genre would that be?
Drama.
Why drama?
Because life has been full of action, like up and down things. There's it's never a straight path, but it's a lot of drama. Yes.
Awesome. That was pretty spontaneous, huh? Okay, my last question. Who do you admire the most?
My mom.
Because she taught you how to sketch, how to get into the clothing industry?
No, not really, not that. Actually, she is a woman of substance. She is a woman who has taught me to, there's culture, there is style, there is elegance. She's a talented person, and she's gone through her own, cycle of life where she's dealt with a lot of different drama. Social, so there's a lot that goes, but how she has gracefully lived through everything and supports me, guides me throughout, and actually both my parents have shown me how to be. They've been my pillar of strength. And I picked up sketching and the artistic aspect from my dad and my mom. So they have their own fields. My dad is an artist, and he's been painting for years. He's been doing that, and my mom has her own way of presenting things. Like even if you're making a dish, how do you present the dish? Is something that I learned from her. Flower arrangements, and but more than anything else, how to be a good human being. That is the crux underlining thing. How do you be a better person? How do you make yourself, and how to be resilient? I learned from my dad. So my mom and my dad are two people that I admire, adore, and God bless them. It's like just love them.
Amazing. All right. So thank you so much, Vaishali, for taking our time, for interacting with us, and that too with the time difference that we are in. You woke up early and you agreed to do this with us, this session. For you, I'm sure that it is pretty early in the morning, and I'm sure that you've touched the hearts of many people who are listening to you. And I truly had a great time interacting with you, and it was a pleasure knowing you.
Likewise, I have enjoyed it thoroughly, and I'm honored to be a part of this platform. And I would love to help out in any way I can. And thank you so much for inviting me over. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So much. And before I sign off, since we are on the eve of our Independence Day, so I would not want to leave out on this opportunity to say, "Sare jahan se acha Hindustan hamara."
Jai Hind.
Absolutely. And thank you, Vaishali, for keeping the heritage of India alive, and for, of course, inspiring the future generations to do the same thing, the good work that you're doing. And a very, very happy Independence Day a day in advance to everybody. And Jai Hind is what we're getting the messages. So Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Yes. You see the colors in the mannequin behind me? I was like,
Absolutely.
at least I could do that. Jai Hind.
Absolutely.
Happy Independence Day to all.
On that note, thank you everyone for being with us on this journey, and keep smiling and keep shining and take good care of yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.